Good morning. Welcome to my Reconnect series on Facebook Live. My name's Faye Semple and I am the spiritual geomancer to female entrepreneurs, leaders and change makers. And I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about energy centers and chakras, as you may know them, and how that energy matrix creates part of our physical reality and our emotional and mental health. A lot of people talk about chakras and energies and they describe it as very woo-woo. Personally, I've got a little bit of a beef with that term because actually the auras and the chakras have been scientifically measurable since the 1960s, and there's an awful lot of research going into these things now, particularly the chakras, as in the behaviour of light photons, which create the very reality that we're in, and our emotions and all sorts of things. But today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about blocked chakras and how they affect us and chakras overall. Now, for those of you who don't know me, as I say, I'm the spiritual geomancer to female entrepreneurs, change makers and leaders. And all my life I have been able to see the unseen. So I see energy around everything. I see it as geospirals, as toroids, like large donuts. I see the aura in a variety of forms and geometrical shapes. And within that, there's also the chakra system. And within all these shapes and geometry, there is number, there is meaning, there is information. I even hear energy, I hear harmonics, and I see all these symmetrical patterns. And from disharmony in the noise and discord in the pattern, that enables me to unpick where people have become blocked, frustrated and prevented from being themselves. So let's just start a little bit with, by the way, if you're watching this live, if you put hashtag live, if you're watching it on replay, put hashtag replay. And if you've got any questions and queries, put them up as we go. I will try and answer them, but I'll always answer them afterwards if I don't answer them live. So to start with, I want to talk a little bit about the chakras. Now, in most modern Western society, we know that there are 7 major chakras through the energy, up through the body, from the base chakra right to the crown chakra. And traditionally, they are depicted as red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo and violet. Actually, that's a modern Western interpretation of the chakra system that came out of America in the 1960s. So this red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet spectrum of the chakras is a new age concept of the chakras. Now that's fine. That might be that we're moving into a new spiritual dimension. It might be that mankind's consciousness, mankind's consciousness is evolving into something else. But personally, I've never seen the energy centers, the chakras, in that way. I have always seen them very differently. I have all my life seen them as like lotus flowers, if you like, the colour of the lotuses with various different petal structures. So the base chakra has 4, then you move up to the sacral chakra, and they have different shapes and colours within them. So the base chakra has a 4-fold petal pattern with a square within it, which is red, and the patterns are different. Now, what it took me a long time to find out, I didn't find out until I was in my 20s, that what I was seeing was the traditional 4,000-year-old Hindu depiction of the chakras. And what happens is these flower patterns evolve with how many petals that they've got in different colours with a different symmetrical shape inside, a half moon, a circle, or a 6-pointed star. And they evolve and they come out with all these colours in. And it's like a constantly moving kaleidoscope. So as one load of petals come out and get to the edge, another one is already coming out the middle. So the whole energy constantly moves. They're also in slightly different locations than the modern Western tradition. I see the heart chakra is lower down, the sacral and the base chakra are much closer together. There isn't one that I can see sort of over the reproductive organs. It's of women. It's the groin area. It's lower down as I see it. But what I also, because I've always been able to see these chakras, what I also noticed that chakras in children are not the same as they are in adults. They're like forming as children are. Now, what happens when our chakras become blocked, and this happens throughout life because obviously we're meant to be here living and experiencing, and not all of it is pleasant, because it's about us learning who we are, how we will and won't be treated, and what we do want to achieve, and all those kind of things. Now, what happens as we go through life? We have emotional traumas, things go wrong, and that literally starts from the minute we're conceived. You know, children who are victims of domestic abuse, their chakras are altered when they come out. There's a whole different process through traumatic births, where chakras can not be born in that child, can be sort of slightly out of kilter if they've been born by caesarean forceps, all sorts of things. And then, of course, as we go through life, we interact with people, we have all sorts of emotional turmoil, intellectual turmoil, because that's life. Life happens. But without a spiritual practice within our lives that enables us to kind of process that on a spiritual and emotional level, not just a psychological level, we often don't remove the trauma from our energy system. We don't talk about these things. We go, oh, never mind, it was a bad day, but, you know, just carry on. We don't talk about how it's affected us emotionally. We don't process that information on a deep level, those experiences on a deep level. And over time, what we do is we tend to give our power away, and we tend to hold on to those emotional experiences. And then our energy gets stuck in that moment in time. And the energy gets rigid around that emotional experiences, and then it forms a pattern within our energy that's not the one that we were born to have, not the one we were designed to have. So therefore, when we get experiences that push that button again, let's say we have a conflict experience and it makes us withdraw from conflict, from then on in, when we approach a situation where there may be conflict, we will go back to that set pattern that we have, and let's say it's withdrawing. Well, there's conflict coming up, I will withdraw. Now that's a survival mechanism, but it's not necessarily the mechanism that's going to enable us to go through life and progress and grow. So removing those inherently life-battered patterns from your chakras and from your aura and for all sorts of energy formations that sit around you is quite crucial. Now, as I say, I'm gifted in that I've always been able to see these energies. And for over 30 years, I have been reading around science, quantum physics, spirituality, parapsychology, because from a very young age, I could see that people were not as they were meant to be. There was an underlying blueprint, and then on the top was all these sort of rusted on patterns of things that had happened to people in life, and it can start very young. So unpicking those blocks is incredibly important. So as I say, over 30 years through reading science, spirituality, I've developed techniques that anybody can use to remove these blocks and to heal themselves. You are your greatest healer. For years, I've had people come to me and say, heal me. You know, I want you to make me better. Well, I can't make anybody better. Only they can heal themselves. I can hold a space for them to help themselves, and I can manipulate, move energy to make them feel better. But unless they go through that deep-seated core energy themselves, what will happen is they will go back. So let me give you an example. For years, I would treat people, as I say, and they would come to me and they'd say, oh, you know, when this happens, I get this certain emotion. And when I was learning, I would go, oh yeah, I can balance the chakras. We'd have a chakra activation session. We'd clear the aura, and we'd do all those kind of things. And then they would go away, and I'd look at them, and they were all clean, they were all shiny, they were all lovely. And then 6 months later, they would come back, and their energy would have gone back into that default position. Now, what was happening was their default survival position, where the patterns and the energy wasn't flowing, and it wasn't looking like these beautiful patterns that it looks with all these fantastic colours in. What they had done is they had gone back into that situation that had caused that trigger moment, and they had behaved in exactly the same way. Now, I can't rebalance someone's patterns to that degree. Only you can do that. I can help people to do it, but only you can do that inside. So they'd gone back to their default position, and that's because they weren't fundamentally being really honest with themselves about what had happened and how it had made them feel and how it had pushed their fear buttons or reflected on their self-worth, or how afraid they were to be themselves, or how afraid they were to stand up and speak their truth, and all those kind of things. So And a lot of this really does come from self-worth and fear that the biggest impacts have on us are the people that often not necessarily mean the most to us, but because we can have trauma come from anywhere in life. But it often reflects later as we go through life on things that have happened to us in childhood. And often we don't mean to damage children. Hopefully most of us don't mean to damage children. But sometimes just dismissing children's feelings and them being perceived as manipulative or things like that, it affects their own self-worth. And therefore that then becomes reflected in their chakra. And particularly if children feel they can't speak about what they're experiencing, then that is very much reflected in their self-worth. So just as a more of a concrete example, many years ago, a mother that I had helped extensively remove her blocks brought then to me her teenage daughter, who was crippled with lack of self-confidence. She was quite academically bright, but she would not speak in class. She would not engage at school. She would hardly speak to anybody. She was really, really, really cripplingly shy. And I worked with her and her mother to remove the energy blocks for the girl. There was a blockage in the base chakra, which meant that she felt completely powerless. So your base chakra, your low chakra, is a sort of dark one. It's about your survival instinct. It very much roots you in the physical survival mode. Now her chakra had been blocked from quite young, and I won't go into the details of the conversations I had between the mother and the child, but it was about removing and the mother apologising, if you like, for things that she had inadvertently done but needed to apologise for, that had taken the power centre away from this child as she was growing up. So she really did lack oomph to stand up and say, and she also had, because she wasn't speaking, the throat chakra was incredibly blocked at the front and the back, simply because she couldn't speak. So all the things she wanted to say, she was holding in, and they were compounded in all sorts of energy fields around the body. So we had several sessions to remove these blocks, to talk about these things, and to actually lay bare your soul, if you like, because I do that in a very careful, holding a safe space that people can actually speak their truth and not feel vulnerable and know they're not open to attack. And that often involves me sharing some of the frightfully awful things that I have experienced and done to make them feel safe. And we then balanced these chakras out, and we got her moving again and got her energy, and I gave her some tools and techniques to practice. And it was really great because her mum rang me about 3 weeks later and said, "Oh, my daughter, you won't believe what she's done. She's auditioned for the school play and got the lead. And she says she's just a changed girl. She's now out there in clubs and societies and going out and doing this and doing this." And it was because she just sort of switched. Her switch had never been put on because she'd been holding that from childhood. And that's quite an extreme example. But those kind of things happen to us all our lives. And then they affect the kind of person that we become. So if we've got hidden blocks and things within our chakras, traumas that we're holding on to, that we've held on from a young age, we can have parts of our personality and our skills blocked from us, and we don't even know that they're there. So if we're going through life and we've got these patterns within us and we think, God, I'm made for so much more. I'm meant to serve. I have a purpose in life. I have skills. I have talents. I want to share them with the world, because ultimately, yes, we want to be successful in life, but we won't be successful if we're not doing it from a place of giving. So what I want to do in life is I'm here to serve people, to help them understand how their energies work, how they inform their reality, and how these energies are actually connected to the outside energies of the universe. Your aura does not necessarily have an end point. It becomes more you close to you, less you going further out, if you like, and then you become part of the one, the whole universe. And your chakras are very similar. There's an energy that definitely keeps you, and everything else that isn't you out, but then there's also an element that connects you to the outside. So your chakras are influenced by the cycles of the moon. The energy changes in your chakras through moon cycles. It changes at times a year. It even changes where you are. So the very geology of the ground that you're stood on can affect the experiences that you have. We are not a contained, self-contained being. We are part of something much bigger. And that bigger is also conscious. So if you imagine on a sliding scale of consciousness, you are a physical being, the same as that tree, but the less physical you get, the more your consciousnesses can all mingle, and the more that you can use those other consciousnesses to help you and to help the wider world. So I am passionate about connecting women to the divine feminine dynamic. And the divine feminine dynamic runs between men and women. It's not about being women, it's about connecting us to the source energy that creates the universe. I'm just passionate about helping women because it's being a woman that put me in a disadvantaged position, if you like, in life. Because the lack of honouring and sanctity of the divine feminine principle is a fundamental rift in society. There is a fundamental rift between how men and women behave. Men are being indoctrinated into toxic masculinity and patriarchy, which doesn't serve them because the divine masculine isn't present, and women are being dishonoured because the divine feminine isn't being honoured. So my mission, if you like, was to bring back more of the sacred feminine so that women would be valued for being women, and we would be able to stop behaving, if you like, in a pseudo-masculine way. Many women's behaviour in their energy is very masculine because we have to go out there and work, and we have to be successful, and we have to be this, and we have to be that. But that doesn't allow us to function from a place of the divine feminine. So there's a schism between the honouring of the divine feminine, between sort of masculine and feminine, that serves neither men nor women. And then uncoupled with that, because we don't see the wider world as a feminine energy source, we are now looking at the world as a set of resources to be plundered, and we're in this ecological crisis, which again is a representation of what happens when we don't honour the divine feminine. And the third part that I found really interesting, because I've always been a seer of energies and I've always been able to connect to consciousnesses outside of myself, out there in the natural world. So on a sliding scale of everything, to the nymph in a tree, to angelic beings, to divas, to elementals. This lack of honouring of the divine feminine means that our communication with the spirit level, if you like, the spirit of things, we don't necessarily have that communication level anymore. And when we do open up that communication level to them to help us, we have to come from a place of humility and apologise, if you like, for everything that's gone wrong. So anyway, so back to the chakras. So the chakras, if you like, offer us an opportunity to tap into divine energy, the sacred feminine divine energy. And that's particularly important for women because we're often assumed that we will behave like men and think like men. Now, it's not men's fault, it's just society at large. I'm not blaming men because I know many of them struggle to be this prescribed role of men, which actually doesn't fit, as I say, doesn't fit the divine masculine either. So, but it's about us operating in a place that we can feel strong, we can feel happy, and we can feel secure in ourselves. And that comes from aligning your chakras. Now, when people talk about alignment, we go to, to create the success and the life that you want, you have to be aligned. Now, there are many levels to alignment, and one of those is having your chakras aligned so that your feelings, thoughts, and intuitions are all coming into one. So you've got your sort of basic survival feelings coming up to your gut and your heart. How do you really feel about it? Is your heart in it? How do you speak about what you want? Do you speak out loud about what you want to manifest? I know what I want to manifest. I say it out loud all the time. To the third eye, and then all the rest of it. Because your chakras interact with light photons. Now, we can now measure that different chakras interact with light photons in different ways. Now, if anybody's familiar with the quantum physics, will know that light photons, if you like, the particle experiment of is it a wave or is it a particle? That energy is a wave or is a particle is related on the observer effect. If I want to observe it as a wave, I'll observe energy as a wave. If I want to observe it as a particle, it will become a particle. So that matter responds to our intention, and it responds particularly to our emotions. So when people talk about manifesting the future that you want and feeling it, it is incredibly important to hit that sweet spot, if you like, because your chakras interact with the light photons which create the very reality that you're living in. So your chakras are a really important tool in manifesting. They're also an incredibly important tool for you understanding who you are, what you are capable of being, and what's actually stopping you get there. So what is your goal in life? What is your mission? Who do you want to serve? I want to serve the divine feminine dynamic, and that means helping women, and that means helping the world and the environment, because we're all incredibly tied up together, and helping men. I just choose to work with women at the moment. So that would be my thing. So that was my goal. Now, what was stopping me getting there? That was a variety of factors that I had to learn lessons. I went through an abusive marriage. I had to learn to stand up and say, I can see these energies, and not being afraid to be shot down, not being afraid to be criticised and pulled up and accused of lying and accused of all the things that I was accused of when I was younger, to go, it doesn't matter what they think. I know what I see, and I know that I can help people. And I know that when I work with people, I can unlock them and I can teach them to transmute energy so they can get rid of all the man-made rubbish that goes on in our life that holds us down, that we worry about. We get so bogged down, we don't see the big picture. So that was my blockages, if you like, that were holding my back. And then I had to develop the commitment level to say, no matter what, I'm going to do this. No matter what, I'm going to create the new life. And your level of commitment has to be 100%. Once you get that within yourself, you will find a will and you will find a way. But your chakras then supply you with the energy and the ability to connect with consciousness outside of yourself for you to be able to achieve those things. So when we become blocked, we become so bogged down in the real world that we can't think. We start worrying about money and who's going to say this and what my parents are going to say if I do that, and how can I put that on social media to promote my business, because what will everybody say? And we get blocked and we get bogged down. And unblocking these to find your pattern, your form, is a really interesting experience. Now, if you put comments up, sorry, I haven't, my phone, whenever I go live, my phone won't let me see the messages. So if you've got any on there, I will go through them, obviously. Right, so yeah, so that's teeth. So tomorrow, what I'm going to do is I'm going live in my group, Divine Feminine CEOs, and I will continue this discussion there. So if you're not a member, get yourself in. And what we're going to be looking at tomorrow is techniques that I use that I'm going to show you online about understanding how your chakras work, the flow of energy, and how you can unblock them. And I will be showing you a technique that you can use to work out which chakras are blocked, look at timelines, look at things that might be affecting you, so that you can work your way through in your own time to look at these chakras to see what blocks are in there. As I say, I'm fortunate that I can see all these energies. But if anybody does want to talk to me about how I can help you and the programs that I offer and services that I offer, just drop me a DM and I'll get back to you. But hopefully I will see the group members in the group tomorrow, and if you want to join, then the group is Divine Feminine CEOs, and I will put the link below. And yeah, have a great day, and I will see you all soon. So have a think about your chakras, have a think about how you feel when certain things happen. What patterns of behaviour have you got when you're in situations that you know you don't like? Are you able to speak your truth when you feel undermined? Are there certain people that you don't like? How do you feel about your masculinity or your femininity? How do you feel about your identity? How do you feel about your body, your health, your mind, who you are? What patterns in your behaviour and your thinking have you got that you know do not serve you? And would you like to get rid of them? because getting rid of them is one of the key things to help you move forward and create the success that you want. So, right, that's me done for the day because I'm due for another cup of tea. And I think I got lipstick on my teeth rather, unfortunately, but never mind. Okay, so I will see you all again soon. And if you want to join me in my group tomorrow to look at some of the techniques I use in my clients, I hope to see you all there. All right, take care then. Bye.